Hi everyone, this is Maggie from Brainbark. Welcome back. Today is just gonna be me talking about my experience, and the topic is patriotism brainwashing education. So, at the picture that you can see, there was a soldier guiding a little kid who is holding a spear in his hands, and they both look angry. The words at the bottom is, that is not a target, that is enemy. It is American imperialism. So this is where I want to start it, because my generation, even my parents' generation, they were born in the 1950s, and China, the PRC, People's Republic of China, established in 1949, and my parents were born in 1950s. And when their generation were little, they were already told that Japan is bad, America here means US is bad. And so it's, if you look at the time, it's like as soon as the PRC started, they start brainwashing everybody, said that, hey, they're all our enemies. I don't care what they did to us before. I don't care if they helped us, but they're our enemies. So, and then there's something happened to change my mind, because I was like that. I was totally brainwashed for all my school years, and which is like from daycare, kindergarten to university. I was told that Japan was bad, America was bad, they're all our enemies. And so when I first came to the US, I felt really sensitive about how people think about China, Taiwan, and Tibet, everything. And later on, I found that I wasn't the only one who felt that way. And everybody's kind of like, who from mainland China are kind of like sensitive in that way and trying to fight back, say, hey, you are wrong. They're part of China. They cannot be, separated. We have to be together. Those kind of thing. And then later on, I just start getting, tired and exhausted by reacting like this. I was like, why should I care about that much? I mean, Taiwan, they have their own passport, they have their own money, they have their own law system. What is the whole point of fighting all this? They're having a good life, right? So why can't I just let them be? And later on, I read this article, and I'm going to show you guys. Pretty much this article is kind of like an announcement, said that Japan had helped us in the past 40 years, which is from like 1979 to 2018 or something like that. I couldn't remember exactly. So pretty much that in this article, I found out that when I was a kid, all the vaccines were not made in China. They were all from Japan. And they helped us about 0.2 billion vaccines to the newborn babies, even to the youth. And so this article really gave me a huge mind blow. I was like, wait a second, we were all told that they were bad, but nobody ever told us that they were helping us. So why is that? And I felt really sorry, because in all my life I was planted this hatred that the Japanese, they were militarism, they were bad, and they hate us, they killed our people. So I started talking to my friends in this WeChat group, and I told them about this article. And I pretty much said the same thing. I said I really felt really sorry and really guilty. That was my real feeling, because I feel guilty because I kept hating them, even, and nobody told told me that they were helping us. First of all, nobody answered my question. Nobody said a word. But later on, they started talking, and pretty much the same thing said, don't forget that they killed our people when they invaded China in the 1930s. They killed about 300,000 people, blah, blah, blah. I was like, yeah, I know those, but they also apologized and they try to be good, right? They're using their actions to help us. They were like, okay, but I still can't forgive them. I said, why can't we just forgive about what happened to the past? Forgive the hatred. Just accepting the apology and move on with love. And pretty much everybody said, no, I can't. And in this year, when the trade war started, at the very beginning I wasn't really care. Then I started paying attention to what's going on with the trade war, and from the news that I read, China and the US, they had 11 rounds of conversations of the discussion on the agreement, and every time China just said, okay, we agree with everything, and then we're gonna go back to China and let our big boss know, and then we're gonna get back to you as soon as possible. But every time they step back, they say, okay, we're gonna come with something else. And then finally at the 11th round, they kind of, I might not remember very exactly, but what I remember was they kind of toured about 50 pages of the agreement, and in those 50 pages, which were kind of like the essential part of this agreement that allows China to open up to free internet, free media, free speech. But China, they step back again and disagree with this. And then the US said, okay, we're going to start the tariff on you. That was in May this year. And so that was the news that I read. Later that day, after Trump announced this tariff, my friend, same group of my classmates, they post an article which is completely lie about everything of the trade war. In the article, it said it's all America's fault. They walk away and toward the agreement. They did not want to make a deal with Chinese people. They want us just be a cheap labor and can be manipulated forever and ever. I was like, dude, this is so brainwashed. And I said that in the group. And immediately I got bashing on it. And my friend, one of the girls said, you were brainwashed by the Americans, and start bashing all over me. I was like, no, this article is not true at all. I said, everybody in the world loves Chinese people, love China. We have nothing against with China and Chinese. The only thing that we don't like is the party, is CCP. And we separate that definition away from China and Chinese people. And they couldn't take this. They were like, no, China is CCP. And if you don't like CCP, that means you're a traitor. At the end, I was like, okay, there's only one question that I want to ask. Have you ever seen a ballot? And she went, we don't need it. CCP is not a non-profit organization. That was her answer. I was like, wow, okay. So I stopped talking to them. And in the next week, I kept thinking about this issue. I was like, I knew this is the start. I knew more and more things are coming from this point. And I knew that they were going to post more and more articles like this. And I knew that I cannot just be quiet and shut up and not say a word. So then I decided to quit that group, even though I really want to talk to them, because WeChat is the only way for me to talk to them. I used to ask them if they have WhatsApp or Line. They said no, those apps are not existed in our App Store or Android App Store. They were like, we don't need it. We have WeChat and that's enough. That's good enough. And so I decided to quit the group. And then later that day, which was like 4 a.m. in the morning at Beijing time, another friend of mine who was also in the same group, he woke up and found that I wasn't in that group anymore. And he started bashing on me. He was like, Maggie, how can you be like this? How can you do whatever you want? Why can't you just find us there and just walk down and be with us? And I told him, I said, I'm sorry, I really can't. I cannot be like that. And then he never talked to me since May that day, which is kind of sad because we knew each other for over 30 years, but there's nothing I can do. And then later on, in June 9th, when the Hong Kong protests started, I started posting pictures in WeChat, not in the group, but it's like a page. It's like my personal page that all my friends can see. And nobody even cared about what's going on. Nobody even asked, why are you posting these pictures and what was going on in Hong Kong? And they just focusing on their, TikTok app and celebrity, and everything looks so beautiful and peaceful. And on the other side, that Hong Kong is fighting for their freedom. And then I was talking to one of my friends in college about what Hong Kong is doing. And she was like, they're bad people. Hong Kong and Taiwan, they're all bad people. They all want to be independent. They all want to separate from us. I was like, wait a second. Did you ever know what's going on in Hong Kong? And she was like, no, I never watched the news because I work in the department of, news office. It's kind of like a propaganda, which means she was like, I knew all the news are fake, so I never watched them. I just jumped to the conclusion. If the conclusion said that there is riot, which means that this protest is riot. And I was like, wait a second, if you never watched what's really going on, how can you just trust the conclusion was right? And she never answered me that question. And then later on we were talking about CCP, and I told her, I said, look, this party is not good for us, it's gonna be gone. And she was like, no, it's not. And if so, who's gonna take care of us? I was like, don't worry about that. It's definitely gonna be something better. And she was like, no, it's not. If so, how can you be sure that the next one is better than CCP? I was like, I'm sure that it will be better than this, because if you can tear down CCP, we can tear down any parties that we don't like, and we vote on the ones that we like. And she couldn't accept this. And she was like, look at our history. Pretty much all the dynasties last about 200 years. And CCP only lasts about 70 years. So we still have 130 years. And I just want to make sure that my life stays the same till I die. And that will be good for me. And I was like, what about your kid? She's like, it's not something that I can think about. And then we were talking about Hong Kong and Taiwan, and she was like, you know, you American are bad. You're just like those people who broke into my house and pointing at my nose and said, hey, you're bad. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do that. And then she was like, are you agree with me that Taiwan is a part of China? And I told her, I said, I don't think I can agree with you on that. And you just sound like what you described those Americans, that you thinking about if you are a Taiwanese and someone broke into your house and pointed at your nose, say, hey, you don't belong to Taiwan, you belong to China. And she didn't say anything. And at the end, with all our arguments, of course, there are tons of arguments that we had. But all in all, she was like, okay, look, Maggie, I still believe that Chinese people need someone like CCP to control us. But don't get me wrong, I agree with everything that you said. I agree with you that democracy is good for Western people. So I'm going to go to Hong Kong next month and buy this American insurance for my kid. I was like, wait a second, but you said CCP is good, so why don't you just buy CCP's insurance with Chinese money, with RMB? And she was like, no, that's not gonna work. I was like, am I the crazy one or you're the crazy one? And so we didn't talk since then because we were not agreed with what's happening in Hong Kong. And she kept telling me that don't read all the Western news, read our news. Look what's happening in China. We're all fighting together. I was like, how about you read some news that has different point of view? And later on, when U.S. announced that China is the currency manipulator, I talked to another friend of mine immediately after I got this news because I knew that she has loads of money in the stock markets in China. And I told her, I said, look, please, this is gonna be bad. Please sell your stocks and change them into US dollar because I knew that Chinese RMB, which is the currency of China, is not gonna last anymore, and it will not value anything. But she was like, you read too much Western news, and I don't think those are true because since I'm trading the stocks, of course I pay attention to what's going on, and of course that I read all the news in China. And I don't think it's gonna be that bad. You know, look at Huawei. When US put a sanction on Huawei, what's happened to Huawei? Nothing. They're having a very good sale here, and our news reported that they're still having a very good sale right now, even though they had a sanction. So American just, barked so loud, but nothing happened. I was like, okay, let's put this China and American thoughts away, just talking about what's going to happen after this currency manipulator thing. Because I know that things are not just going to stop right here, right? There must be something going to happen. Can you prepare yourself for what's going to happen? because it's not going to be beautiful, it's going to be ugly. And I think trading or exchanging your Chinese money into US dollar will be a good way to protect yourself, right? And then she was like, thank you so much for all the advice, and I really appreciate it, but seriously, it totally depends on me, who make the decision on my behavior. And right now, I don't think harmful things are gonna happen, and I don't feel like I really like America, so I don't really feel like I want to change my RMB into US dollar. So thank you. And so the conversation pretty much ends right over there. And we never talked since then. And I also talked to another college classmate. I told him that it's pretty much the same thing, prepared for the worst. Just put the hate on the side and focusing on what's going to happen in the future. And pretty much he said the same thing, like, I just want to have a life, I'm having a life. It's not a good one, but I'm still bearable. I just want to finish my life with nothing happened, nothing changed in the future. And if you're that great, he said, why don't you help us? And from that point, I was like, what happened to all my friends? Like, they refuse to listen. They refuse to accept even another point of view of what's happening right now. They all believe whatever the newspaper, which is the propaganda, feed them, the quoted news. And it give me the feeling that it's just like all my friends, that they are in this house and the house is on fire while they're sleeping, and I see the fire. I break the door and I try to wake up everybody. Some people, when they're half awake, there will be other people came over to push them down back onto the bed and say, hey, don't listen to her, she's a liar, just go back to sleep, there's no fire at all, don't listen to her. And some other friends, they were just crawling under their blanket and said, it's okay, my blanket is fireproofed, I'm not worried. And the other friends are like, open their eyes and like, hey, why don't you just put out the fire for me? Why do you wake me up? So from that point, I was like, if they all think that in this way, then it's kind of like not their fault. It's the system's fault. Who is controlling the system? It's a party. It's the CCP. The CCP is controlling them, is manipulating their minds, is brainwashing their minds, and just tell them, the CCP is telling them that it's okay, trade war, we're gonna take care of it, don't worry, everything is good. So from that point, I realized that if I really, really want to save my friends, I need to do something, but not directly on them, but taking down the CCP. And that's why I started this channel. And because I saw the evil side of CCP, and they're not just stopped in China, they're trying to manipulating the whole world. So when I talk to my friends here in the US, most of them didn't know or didn't care what's happening thousands of miles away from them. They thought that, it's the government's job to take care of things, which is kind of giving me the same feeling that they're kind of like in a similar situation of my friends in China, and I don't want that. I jump out of that hole, and I don't want to jump into another hole. And so that's why I started this channel. I want to use my words to explain and to introduce what's happening right now and what's going to happen and what had happened back then in the history. And then in the next episode, we're going to talk about CCP's infiltration. And I hope you guys looking forward to it. Alright everybody, thank you so much for listening. This is Maggie from Brainbark. If you like us, please subscribe. If you think that this is a very good channel, please recommend it to your friends. Again, thank you so much for watching.